Introducing Orwell, a new security program that combines cutting-edge information retrieval with human-directed suspect profiling. For Orwell to be truly successful, however, we need you, someone outside of the nation, capable of discerning information posted by suspects online. You will have to carefully decide what information is crucial for our investigations. Stakes are high.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Video Games podcast. I am your host, Turbo Tony, the maestro of video games as he is, but I'm not joined by any so-and-so off the streets. I am joined by the delectable, the absolutely entrancing Matt Marsander. How are you doing, Matt?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I'll tell you what, it feels weird to say, let's talk video games.
It just feels weird just when you were like, hello. I was like, oh, wow. It was like that brief moment where like, wow, it has been a while.
I don't ever say hello like that unless I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah, this is my podcasting voice.
Exactly. I've already got through this is the first podcast we've done since we've basically kind of done a mini relaunch of the channel, and we're big gamers. People who may have followed the show beforehand know that we're big gamers. And doing video games on a podcast is not something we've done a little time before. But initially, we're going to do our first review, our first podcast here on
video games. Is what was always the background of the old sort of.
Oh, they were, podcast. Yeah. I used to put basically gameplay over before we did this actual channel on LTW and all that sort of stuff. So kind of go back to our roots on a little sense here. And we are actually currently playing games as we speak. We're playing Rocket League as we're doing this review. So we're doing a fine task of multitasking here. And I say that we just...
fucked it.
Anyway, we're not talking about Rocket League today. We're talking about Orwell. Orwell is a delightful little game. Like I said, we are going to try and get a Mass Effect Andromeda review in. That was our plan. I was planning on we're recording that last night, and then the game had a patch, and then now it won't launch for me. So at the moment, I'm quite angry with it. I feel as if that would kind of tarnish my review. But Matt, you finished Orwell a matter of about an hour ago.
Yeah.
So it's fresh in your mind.
It is. And I'm still struggling to. I left it. The worst part is just talking to you and you were like, oh yeah, you're so close to the finish. And I didn't realize I was literally 5 minutes from the finish.
Yeah, literally. It's literally one decision away and then it's over. So basically, for those who don't know, there is an Origin access that you can get on your computer. It's like a subscription. And this gives you basically not free access because you're paying, but it gives you access to some of EA's back catalogue and some indie games that they've been adding on there. And Orwell is one of the lesser known titles that has been added to that service, and that's how I found it. Because I don't go looking for a lot of these type of games. I need a lot more reassurance on the games I'm buying. So if it comes free in a service or it's extra added in a service, then of course I'll give it a go. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't.
Why not? Yeah.
Otherwise, though, I probably wouldn't have given this game any thought. I probably wouldn't have even touched it. So what Orwell is?
Oh, you son of a bitch!
What Orwell is essentially is it's a video game exploring surveillance. How the government might keep tabs on certain people after a very bad incident that occurs. It's like a terrorist incident. There's not really no way of getting around it. It is a terrorist incident that happens.
Yeah.
And it essentially centers around what seems like, at the very beginning, a very innocuous task of gathering information and trying to figure out who was...
Nicely done.
Yeah, who was basically behind that attack. And you think that you're basically playing the role of an NSA agent. There's really no way of getting around it. You're finding information. You're snooping on people's personal lives. And
the way I like to describe it was if you ever watch like Criminal Minds, or like I'm really into Blind Spot at the moment.
Yeah.
But there's always that one person sort of at the computer, sort of like, oh, tell me what you found. Oh, as it so happens, such and such is here.
Yeah.
Or you're basically playing that role.
Yeah. Yeah, you're basically. They tell you right at the start is your job is to find information, and then the information that you give will be acted upon by other sources.
Yeah.
But you fastly start realizing that the game isn't going to be as cut and dry as that. And while they say, okay, we're going to act on the information that you give us, so we're making the choices, you quickly find out that there's different ways to interpret two pieces of information. For instance, one piece of information could paint someone as a very violent individual that wants to harm people. Like, let's say if someone said, oh, you know what, next time someone gets in my way, I'm really going to hurt them. I'm going to kill the next person that comes to me. Is that a declaration of someone actually going, like, I'm going to harm someone?
Yeah, is it a declaration of intent, or is it just they've had a bad day? Like, everyone's guilty of going, do you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, you know what? I hate that person. Is that a declaration that, like, is that enough motive for you, if that person ends up dead, for you to say that, okay, someone could say, well, they murdered that person because, they said that they hated them, Yeah. So while I do like how the story progresses, and I think that's one of the things that I like about the game is how, like, they almost fool you into thinking that you're not involved when really you are 100% involved, more than you think that you are. And it's a very narrative-based game. You're basically searching through articles, Facebook accounts, but obviously by a different name because they don't have the rights to say Facebook. You're looking through emails. And as the game gets more and more further along the story, it kind of explores more avenues on, like, how far are you willing to snoop into these people's privacy to get the information that you think might stop more people dying. And it's that line between what you think is right and what you think is wrong gets, like, increasingly thinner and more blurry as things goes on.
Like, are you willing to go to hack into their computer, get into their, like, recycle bin on their desktop and see, oh, well, what? Maybe they just sort of try to clear it all off the system.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can find it.
Yeah, yeah. It plays off those very, like,
is it, I'm trying to remember that there's a book, and I have read it, and it's basically going along the sort of lines of sort of public surveillance.
Yeah, like,
the name escapes me right now.
Yeah, and whether or not it's right to do that, or whether we should do it, if the ends justify the means, is one of the things that that they play with. And basically, what the game is basically told through is that essentially you're working through your computer screen, and you've got access to certain pieces of information, and you have to make the assumptions on that. One thing I like about the game overall, though, Matt, is that one of the things I like the choices what they did is that you're overlooking a series of, like, let's say about 5 or 6 characters that make up the brunt of this story. That does include, like, yourself. You are a character in the story, which is one of the things I like about the game. It's not intent of making you be a spectator to the story. You may think it's very weird that this sort of game could involve you in the way it does, but it does, and it makes you part of the story. It makes your actions and your choices very quickly pay off for either good or bad. So you get to know these characters, and because you're snooping on these characters, trying to get information about them, you're hearing about some of the good things they've done. You're hearing about some of the bad things they've done. You're hearing about the friends, the lovers that they've had, the experiences that they've had. And you do feel a bit dirty. There's no way of getting around it when you're going and sifting through emails between two characters that are boyfriend and girlfriend, talking about how much they love each other and the things they've been through.
Yeah, or just sort of like sharing messages. Because I know there's sort of like you're dealing with a breakup and you're like, oh, it's tough.
Yeah, yeah. And you're listening on conversations where they're talking about this, and it's very well written, those sort of bits, And they like, one of the things that I watched a movie recently, a horror called Unfriended, and it's an entire horror movie that plays through a Skype chat. And one of the things that they do to build, like, tension in the narrative in that is that they'll have the character, because you're basically watching their computer screen. It's told entirely through their computer screen. one of the things that they do to build tension is that, you know, a normal person on a computer screen is that before they click something that they're worried about, they might hover over it for a little while, right? They might not want to click it for a little while, but then the curiosity gets the better of them. It has a really good way of kind of portraying someone not being scared to click on something. So when you're listening to conversations here, they're not playing out instantly. You don't just get a block of text. They're playing out as you go. So you might have someone that pauses for a while on a big piece of information.
Yes, or like was they having like a messenger chat or something? Like you have that delay between the messages.
Yeah, and that builds some serious tension because some of the big narrative moments in this game happen with these conversations that someone might say something that instantly flips everything, or the shit's about to hit the fan, and then you've got to decide, do I upload this piece of information that makes this person come off like a terrorist? Do I have enough information that I can safely put on my own
put my name against?
Yeah, that I think this is going to be the case. And, you know, it's a game that can hit you out of nowhere and it sucks you in. The narrative is so powerful in moments that when you go back and play it from the beginning, you can almost wonder, like, how did it get to this point? How could a game that seemed so innocent, well, maybe not innocent, but seems as if it was just an exercise, like, you know, like Papers, Please has that a little bit, right? Where you're playing it and all you're doing is trying to find out information and trying to make sure that, you know, the right people get into the country. But then quickly the game has like a real knack for involving you and making you the centerpiece of what's going on. This game has a lot of that in it. And it seems like it's got quite an interesting message at the end of it, depending on where you want to pick on. You know, there doesn't seem to be like a right answer to all of it, you know? Which is what I like, because it's all down to your interpretation. The whole game, now I think about it, the whole game is what you interpret the facts to be.
Yeah.
You know, how you interpret those facts and how you give those information across really will change the story and, you know, and make things play out because of how you see things. You might realize that you are so wrong about certain things because you didn't have enough information, or you only had some information and you made the wrong assessment on it. I love those sort of games, man. I love those games where the choices can end up being so heavy that the game is only like 4, maybe at tops 5 hours long.
Yes.
A lot of that time may be spent with you just sitting there thinking to yourself, what do I do? What do I pick? You know, how do I, what would do right by these characters?
Like, is this the right decision? Like you sort of a lot of second guessing where you're sort of like, oh, but I mean, the one thing I like is the fact that it turns around and goes, somewhere there's a conflicting piece of information. But even then you're still just like, oh, but I don't know. But then you start looking into the finer details, like, oh, she says on her Facebook page that she hasn't worked in a week, yet this document from a recruitment agency says that she was working last week.
Yeah.
Which one's true?
Yeah. Where you know, and why was this lied about? And
where's the confliction?
And it may not be something that's, you know, it may not be, oh, she's trying to hide something. It may just be like, okay, she's trying to get around like a tax workaround or something like that. You know, it just something to make her family, you know, eat better. You know what I mean? Like, you know, have a better income, have a better life. Not everything. Like, that's what I like about the game. There's almost like a bit of a murder mystery to it because, like I said, there's such a short amount of characters. You know, there's about 5 that you keep track of, and you are pretty much told right from the get-go that one of these characters is responsible.
Yeah.
But you constantly flip-flop. And it's not one of those games that I feel like sometimes with narrative games like this where they want you to make decisions and they want to like try and keep the identity of who is the perpetrator hidden throughout the entire game. This is a game that if you do enough research and you come to the right assumptions, then you can figure it out. You know, you can figure out who is the bomber. Yeah, the game will try and steer you one way and the other, but it's not trying to cheapen the investigative side of it. You know, it's you can, you know, is it multiple people at fault? Is it a group? Is it, you know, you have to kind of try and figure all this out slowly but surely, and then there's obviously a much grander sort of decision that comes towards the end of the game. The UI, Matt, I found the UI for a game like this, a lot of games that try and do something similar like this, sometimes the UI can be very invasive in terms of like you're going through lots of articles. Like, there's a lot of clicking, a lot of sliding, trying to get things in the right way. I thought the way that Orwell did it was really good. So basically, it's just one click to get back to your main screen. Everything is like no more than 2 or 3 clicks away to get to where you need to go. So sifting through like old articles, looking for information you may have passed on, never seemed like too much of an issue. So our game just dropped out there randomly.
Yeah.
So
you won. It's like, but it's still counting down.
So yeah, I think the way that the UI, I never got frustrated with the game. There is a few problems though, because while they tell you at the beginning of the game that it's up to you to upload what information you believe is relevant, there are certain points where you may think that a certain piece of information isn't relevant, but that is required to push the story along, and then you get stuck. And sometimes it's not entirely sure on like what you're meant to do, and you might upload pieces of information you didn't want to, or you might think that something doesn't give you, like, let's say an alias. You may think, okay, that isn't an alias that would give you access to more information, but it actually is sometimes. Yeah. But for a game that relies solely on those,
I got stung by that.
How many times did you get stung by that sort of thing?
That one time.
Just once.
That one time that I spoke to you about.
Yeah, I got stung twice. There was 2 points where I was stuck, and I was looking around, and I was wondering, what have I missed? And it's one of those things. It's one of those sort of games, because it is quite. It's not exactly like a big game in terms of popularity. Not, it's not huge. There's not a lot of walkthroughs out for it. So if you are stuck, you can't exactly go online and go, what do I do now? Because there's so many different ways of extracting that information or choices. So it can be a little bit confusing if you do get stuck on where you need to go next in order to make the story progress. And you know what I found was a little bit annoying with that, Matt, is that only seemed to happen for me at the points where the story was really ramping up, that I was like, I don't know what's happening here. So maybe that's
this information. Like, nope.
Yeah. So I want to talk about spoilers, Matt, but I think we've done enough talking about the basis of the game. Let's give a review of the game, and then we can do the second half here where we can give people spoilers. So if they played the game, they can get our thoughts on it. I think that's probably a good way to go. Yeah. So what out of 10, Matt? How would you rate Orwell?
I'd give it a good 7.
A good 7?
Like a good 7.
Why not further? Why did you go to 7?
I think it's just those brief moments where I'm putting my own personal. Okay, I'll upscale to an 8.
Okay,
mostly because I was thinking to myself, like, there was just points where I felt like I'd overlooked so much stuff, but then that was truly down to my own idiocy.
Yeah, okay.
Where, like, that bit is clearly highlighted in blue, but because I didn't think it was necessary, the game basically went, no, well, you can't go any further. But I don't care that. Like, why should that matter? Nope, I need this information.
Yeah.
Fine.
Is there any way that you feel as if maybe the game could have improved to get a high rating? Do you maybe think maybe it's just a little bit more on the length side, building up a bit more of that narrative?
I think maybe a little. I think probably another day.
Yeah. So maybe like another hour or hour and a half maybe on that length.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the length is good. I think you get a good story, but I do agree. Like 4 hours, you can get this done. I put it down 2 solid play sessions. You can get this game finished.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to talk in 4 hours, a very solid play session, you get it done in a day.
Yeah. You dedicate a night to it, and you'll get this done. And it's a good story. I will go a bit. I'm going to go for an 8. I did a written review of this a few days ago. Which I might. I don't know if I'll put a link to it. I don't know. But the issues that I had with it maybe not going any higher is that I find it very hard. I think to rate it any higher. I think 8 out of 10 is a very good score. I don't think that people should be like, an amazing game should get a 9. 8 is a very, very, very good score. And
Yeah.
Even a 7 would be a good score as well. But I just think that maybe, like, for instance, at the very beginning of the game, the graphics, I know they go for a certain art style, and I agree with that. But the actual bombing itself, you know, they could have had a few moments. Like, there's a moment in the game where something big happens, where they could have had another moment where they kind of take you out of the PC setting and then they show you what happens. Like they do at the beginning, where they show the bombing and what happens there. Whereas that's the only point of the game where you're taking outside of of that computer
There
setting.
isn't a newspaper clipping.
Yeah. There's also like a few like pet peeves in the game where you feel like you want to investigate certain people, but in order to make the narrative go a certain way, they kind of lock off people to you. And you might want to investigate here, but they're telling you have to investigate there first.
Yeah.
So that's the down there. But I was so pleasantly surprised with this game. And it's one of those games that, like, for instance, to put it in perspective, I had Assassin's Creed Unity, which I haven't played that much of. That game is huge. That's probably 60 hours to complete all of it there. I think this is a good game that shows that you can have a game that's 4 hours. It's better than a 60-hour game. I would rate this higher than AC Unity.
As long as it's narrative.
Yeah.
Like, narrative's key. I think, like I said, I think the only thing that it really needs is probably like one more day where you're like, I don't feel like there was that moment where you thought, I'm so close, I've got it, and then they pull the rug under you, out from under you. I think that's that still moment where you're still second guessing, and then all of a sudden it goes, well, here's the answer. You're like,
yeah. So 8 out of 10 for me. I would heavily recommend this game. And the fact you can get it on Origin Access, you can't get it on EA Access because it's a PC only game, but you can get it on Origin Access, which is, for me, is $3.99. I think it's even cheaper for you, Max.
No, I think it's still $3.99 for me.
Oh, okay, so I'm getting one over on you for that. So $3.99 for a month, and you're getting tons of other games. I swear by that Origin Access service, but this is one of the games you get in it. So really, the game then, if you're only going to buy for Orwell, is $3.99. That is more than I would happily pay.
£7 on Steam.
€4. I would be happy paying £7 for it. Personally, I was very happy with the way it turned out. And sometimes I've played a lot of narrative games like this, man. Sometimes the game becomes undone. Sometimes the characters then aren't very well written. The dialogue comes off really bad. There's no emotional attachment to any of the characters. So then it's kind of playing out the story. No, they make sure that you get to know every character that you're going to either condemn or save in this story. So 8 out of 10, very happy with it. And it's a big recommendation. And, it's kind of cool. This game is our first game review. Mass Effect could have been if the game would have actually worked.
If their hotfix fixed.
Yeah, if their hotfix that was meant to fix the game didn't break mine in the process, but still. All right, then, Matt, let's talk some spoilers. So people that haven't played the game, look away now. We're going to be talking about what happens throughout the entirety of the narrative of this story. And characters, names, what happens at the end, even who the perpetrator is. So if you've completed the game from here on out, you have been warned. All right, I don't want to hear anyone getting pissy at this point. Okay, okay, Matt. So you completed it about an hour ago.
Yes,
and you know who the perpetrator is at this point. That it was Julie who is the perpetrator. She's the person that kept us all aside. What do you think of all the different characters? Because they make you investigate Cassandra first.
Yes.
Who is quite an interesting character, shall we say. Very
blue.
Yeah, blue. There is that. I think she was the perfect character to start off with because obviously she's just unstable enough that you think that she might be involved, even though she's not.
The thing I like with Cassie was there was that grey area where it's like, oh, she's been arrested, but for what? And you think, well, actually, that's a commendable thing.
Yeah, she almost comes off like a hero for that. If that's the way you look at it, she saved someone. So, even though she comes off as a very sort of short-fused woman, and you look into her history.
Oh, no, women, am I right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad my missus is in here today.
Well, she's gone to bed as well. Otherwise, but still, we're still dead because they're gonna. I know that mine's gonna listen to this, so we're kind of screwed. But there we are.
I know mine doesn't need an excuse to hit me.
Yeah. You know what, Matt? In Orwell, that's
not a cry for help. That's all. You know what? Orwell right there. Like she.
Yeah, exactly. You could say that she had intent to kill you, right? A history of personal abuse, man. Oh dear. So I think she was a really good character because really you can think, okay, she's definitely the person that's involved here. But then you look at what she did, and you can say that finding information out about her is quite interesting because you find out about her history, you find out what she's done, that that there's this past, this other thing that was going on, which is quite interesting, her history and
her professional life.
Yeah,
like the way she starts talking about I can get drugs, and you're like, what do you mean you can get drugs? And then you dig a little deeper, and it's like, oh, her parents own a narcotics company.
A pharmaceutical firm.
Pharmaceutical, not narcotics.
Yeah, you make it really sound like
it makes sure it sounds legal.
Yeah. And that's the case that if you don't find information out and do it properly, then you could label this girl as a drug dealer. That's what I like about the game, whereas she's not. She just worked for a pharmaceutical firm. So, and then you find out,
but not even in a small aspect as well.
Yeah.
That she's junior COO and all that lot. And you're like,
yeah, she was set to take over the company, and then she chose that she just didn't want to do that, so she stopped and became an artist, isn't it? I think something like that. Yeah. And she's basically being funded by a sugar daddy, which is a lawyer, which is also one of the characters that you get in. I actually while I didn't like Joseph as a character, I thought he was very. I thought he was well written. Because you could tell that maybe he's not had a girlfriend before, and maybe this is his first proper relationship. So when Cassie starts going kind of crazy and shit like that, you can tell that he's almost worried to the point of biting his fingernails, right? He's just worried. And he's someone that's got his life together, but maybe not his personal life together, and that's how they seem to they fit, and that's how how their relationship works. So it's yeah, I like them. Joseph was one of the characters that I never thought was responsible.
I never suspected him. I felt like him as a character was necessary, though.
Yeah, it's for Cassie, isn't it? He's there to try and sell Cassie as maybe being part of this.
Yes, but I kind of saw him more as the grounded.
Oh, the one kind of coming up with the.
Yeah, almost like the one person in the chat who's not a suspect sort of thing. He's the one person that you think is sort of the voice of reason almost. Yeah, I agree. Considering, because with some of the other characters, let's talk about Harrison, because Harrison's the other guy that you go straight to. Harrison's so messed up. You're yeah, he must blatantly, but wait, he's writing in the newspaper about how I'm so confused.
Yeah, Harrison's a weird one because he seems so intent on trying to make the government out to be, very invasive, which obviously they are because of the space of the story. But it seems like he's someone who he's almost all talk, no action. And towards the end of the game, you realize that this is just some guy who wants to be heard, but he's got nothing.
Yeah, he's got his political punk rock band.
Yeah. He's all talk and basically no action, and then because of he's one of those characters that you can either think, okay, this guy's definitely involved, but then you realize he's just loud and he's talking about a lot of shit but not doing anything.
Yeah,
and relatively he's actually quite harmless. But I like he's a character that you need because he's basically the big swerve. He's the one that you think, yeah, he's clearly got something involved.
And then you realize he's all talk, no trousers, and basically just a big old pussy.
Yeah. And he's got no game back onto it. Nina is a good character, one that they give honest reasons for why she would be involved in the bombing. She basically got fucked by the government. There's really no other way around it.
But Nina, she's your typical oh gee, I wonder who could have done it. Ex-military, used to work with bombs.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. She's on the basis of one of the more heavier decisions in the game. Yeah. I would say Nina and her day that you're dedicated towards investigating her, that's where the game starts getting really serious. That's where the narrative really starts going, okay, shit's hitting the fan here and you need to start picking up your game. And in fact, if you've messed up an earlier decision about where another bombing's taking place, which I did, then even more so because you're feeling like, okay, any wrong decision means that more innocent people are going to die.
Well, I was a bit more laid back because I made the right decision and nobody died in a bombing.
You're a much better NSA agent than I am, Matt, so you can say that. Shh. Are you spying on us?
Don't say that.
Yeah. Are you uploading information on me as I speak? Is this what this whole podcast has been, is it? You know?
It's all a ruse.
It's all a ruse, yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about spoilers here. So Nina, basically, you can make a decision that basically impacts whether or not she survives the course of the game. She is part of the bombing. You find that out, but she also has a family. She has a kid, and you've kind of got to make a decision based on like what you want to let the authorities know about her current situation. You know, for instance, she's trying to escape, and she's got a gun. Do you tell them that she has a history in the army? You know, that she might be dangerous. History with bombs. Do you tell her that she's trying to escape? Do you give them the right address? There's so many different factors that go into the decision here.
Like, it's almost like you got to think of it as a person because you're like, this is what I need to do. Like, they want me to let them know that that there is a gun involved, that she is escaping. This is where she's going to be going. But then you think to yourself, but she's a single mother. Like, for a young son who's working like 3 jobs a week.
Yeah, just to stay afloat.
Stay afloat, yeah. And you're like, oh, crap. Now you're sort of like on a more sort of like almost like a more human level. You're like,
I've got to try and find some way of keeping this girl alive, even though she's not in jail. But, you know, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, she's got a gun and I've got to alert the authorities because she might shoot at the authorities. What do I do? How do I make sure that this ends up with the least amount of damage possible? Yeah. Or do you just go, well, she's a terrorist, fuck her ass? You know, you could easily just do that as well.
Yeah.
So I think her day is easily one of the heaviest. I think that's where the narrative really jumps up another level and things really start hitting its stride. I guarantee that most people would have got her killed. There is a way that you can get her to survive. You can even make it so she flees and doesn't even get arrested as she flees with her son. So maybe not the best ending because you're basically leaving this woman who's a terrorist. She is a terrorist. She bombed places. So, basically letting her escape, whether or not that's down to you or not. Another big moment of it is that you've got your handler throughout all of it. I think his name is Symes that he's going through all the way through it. He gets heavily involved in this as the group start realizing that they are getting targeted. And you've got this other character in here called Initiate who starts fighting back. And he's clearly an anti-government
establishment. Yeah.
And one of the things that I like about the game at this point is that, like, while you may be thinking, all these hackers, and everything like this, they're showing you the results of what happens when the government does, snoop too much and gets the wrong information. So you can't, even though as Initiate comes off as like a character that you're like, this little bastard's kind of getting himself involved, kind of putting his nose in where he doesn't want to. You kind of, at that point in the story, after Nina, you're like, well, maybe he's got reason to be involved because it looks like things are going to ham here, like things are going wrong and it's all down to this system. And it doesn't seem like we're finding really the real perpetrators and people are getting hurt. And people are getting arrested when maybe they might not know anything. And so like, you think maybe he's got a point. And so they start hitting back and they hit your handler. They release all the information about your handler, where he lives, what he's been involved in. And at this point, because tensions are high, there's genuine fears that he could get attacked. Him and his family could get, fatally injured here. And his, you find out eventually that his house has been vandalized. He's had to move. He's now under the things are getting really out of hand at this point in the story. Like he's forced to move. He's in protection now. It's getting bad. And then it leads Matt to the final day. So you've got no handler, and then you've got Delacroix, who's a character all the way through. She's basically like the head of security. She's basically the one who's been heading all of this.
Yeah.
And you fastly realise that this woman is dirty, that she has got this in place, and she's not all that she says to be. But if you have had an eagle eye on this all the way through, you'll realise that she's not just a character who's like, okay, I want this to work, and and she's being a little bit nasty about it. she's also involved with all the characters. You would have seen her name pop up from time to time.
A lot, yeah.
And you realise that she's closer to this, and then maybe she's being self-preservationist about this as it goes on. She's one of the characters, Matt, that I wanted to investigate earlier than I could.
Yeah.
But obviously, I guess maybe in terms of narrative, okay, that's fair enough, because they're not going to let you investigate fucking the head of security. They're not going to let you do it. Which then, kind of brings the whole part of it is like, yeah, okay, so you're doing security over a government, but you're picking who's been done, and it's not entirely fair, and, all these other questions come about.
Especially when you hit that point, there's a point where Goldfell, who is a professor.
Yeah, he's the one who looks like he's behind it all. That's the glue that's kept all these people together.
Yeah, but you find out that he's worked for the government. He's actually responsible for the software that you're running.
Yeah, he made Orwell. Yeah, and he essentially, him and Delacroix were
in cohorts.
Yeah,
in cohorts. Yeah,
yeah. So you realise that, and then there's obviously the big secret around, around him, Abraham, is that he had terminal cancer and he's dead. He's not around. So for a long time, you're thinking, okay, it's clearly him. But then you suddenly realise within like a flip of a switch, wait a minute, all these horrible things that Abraham seems to have set in motion, he was dead. He couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Someone was taking over his identity. So then it switches again to the point of like, okay, who is doing this? Who took over his identity and put things in motion as him?
Yeah.
And then you find out that Julie ultimately was the one who did that. How do you feel about the Julie stuff? Like her coming out and saying, I have to admit, in terms of narrative, that may be one of the things that I'm not entirely sold on, because they almost don't give her enough reason to
step up to that sort of level.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe she didn't have enough meaning. I mean, maybe she got maybe it's one of those things that like she took Abraham's teachings and, too close to heart. And when he died, she took maybe the whole part of the game is misinterpretation, right? Interpreting the facts. Maybe she misinterpreted what he meant and then went on a different path. Maybe he meant for it to be peaceful process. And then she was like, well, actually, no, he meant for things to end up this way. And I don't know. Maybe that's we're onto something there. I'm not entirely sure, but
you learn relatively early on that she has a finger in many pies. Like she's like the first. So when sort of going back to Nina, when she believes that she's being spied on, that her phone's been hacked, and all things like that, and where she's like, I need somewhere safe to go, she contacts Jules. She contacts Julie.
Yeah.
So she's clearly either serving, like you find out early on that she's either serving as sort of like a confidant for everyone, or she is sort of that go-to liaison.
Yeah, initially you kind of make it think as if like she seems like the nicest one in the group. Cassandra seems like she's so unhinged,
That it could have been 3 days ago, but it could not be tomorrow, sort of thing.
Yeah. So like she wouldn't have been a confidant for the entire group. Like Harrison seems like he's all talk and like he kind of doesn't know where he's going, and he's lost kind of ideas of what he's doing in his life. So maybe, and he seems like very, very prone to emotional outbursts. So really, maybe if you look in that sense, that maybe Jules is the one that like, yeah, okay, she is the calmest. She's the most methodical of the rest of them. So coming up with something like this may be more up her alley. I'm not sure, but it did seem like maybe I missed something, but it just seemed like a bit like she didn't have enough reason at the end to do the things that she did, or along those lines.
There was one thing that I never quite figured out though with Julie. So you find out that she gets actually in trouble with her boss because she was working the weekend.
Yeah.
Now, you never really find out why she was doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of those things that maybe we're missing something along those lines, but
or whether it's nothing.
Yeah.
But then, sort of like with the way the rest of the game sort of pans out, you think to yourself, "Oh, but maybe she's like that one location that everyone knows that she's reached. She's always at a landline phone or whatever."
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm not completely against her being the perpetrator. I just think maybe it was, if they added maybe 1 or 2 data chunks at the end where you could just go, okay, they did this to her, the government did this, and maybe I'm missing that, because at the end they kind of say to you, like, we've only got a certain amount of time to figure out who did this, so you can't be as thorough as you've been in other places of the game. You've got to be very selective about the the things that you're picking. So maybe it's that, I don't know, but I don't really know what else can we talk really about. The endings, I guess. Yeah, I mean, we had 2 different endings.
Going back onto Julie, sort of like the one thing I was thinking is, I think you sort of loosely touched on it, but like in every TV show, in every film, whatever, it's like, I had to do it because they did this.
Yeah.
To me, like, you generally just get that, like, I am personally conflicted with this.
Yeah.
And there isn't that.
No. Like with Nina, I could fully understand why she did what she did. Like, she got fucked over by the government. She was a veteran. She came back. She got no help.
Her husband died out overseas.
Yeah. She had and you can understand that she feels like she was wronged. Whereas, Julie, I don't know. Maybe it's simply just one of those things that she seems like quite a reflective person. So seeing all this stuff going on, maybe even with Nina, she took all that on upon herself, and was like, okay, I've got to do something here. I don't know, but that's us filling in the gaps and not the game. So, you can say that. Let's talk about endings, Matt. I got what apparently a lot of people are calling, anyone talked about this game, the good ending. Which seems weird because you're basically supporting terrorism. It's kind of weird. So the good ending is essentially where you have a choice at the end of the game. You can either, because basically you're overlooking a conversation between everyone. This is where Julie admits she's the one who did this. And you've basically got to make a choice at that point, because you're getting Delacroix breathing down your neck. They're going to go into hiding if you don't do anything. But initially, it gives you another response where basically it's like, okay, you can upload the shit on Delacroix as well and get her sort of fucked. Julie's version of her ending, if you choose to go the way she goes, is that you need to destroy Orwell, and the way to destroy Orwell is to show them what you've done.
Expose yourself.
As I said, you are a character in the story, so expose yourself, and everyone will see what you've done, and they'll destroy Orwell and peace and everything like this. Or you can go with Delacroix, which is basically like, okay, fuck this. These guys are clearly losing their minds. I'm going to continue the investigation, publish my findings, and try and get all these people arrested. All of them arrested. So I ended up with the version of events where you destroy Orwell. And I upload information on yourself, and basically you throw yourself under the bus for the sake of everyone else, because I'm such a self-sacrificial type. You know what I'm like, a martyr, shall we say? Someone who's not willing to put himself, above everyone else. I did that, and basically the ending is, okay, Orwell is destroyed. Thought is looked at as this sort of like this group that kind of saved people's privacy and stood up to the government. Even Julie kind of takes over as like Thought's like actual Thought, and as the group's leader. They kind of have so much support by the populace at that point, and they've become almost like a political figure themselves. And while you're in jail, there's enough protests to get you removed from jail that it looks like you're going to get removed. You're going to have your sentence reduced or something along those lines. Apparently that's the good ending. I'm not so entirely sure, because basically what you're saying is like, okay, to stop surveillance, we need, bombing seems to be the only way that we could stop the surveillance. And
how do we stop terrorism? By allowing them to bomb.
Yeah, it does seem a bit odd. You went a different route, Matt. How did yours end?
So I got really annoyed because I was not going to convict Delacroix, but I was just sort of like, well, let's see what's going on. And the moment you access her computer, she goes, ha ha, you're fucked. So in my ending, I got arrested.
Yeah.
But I then sort of found like the final piece of the puzzle, which was, Thought, we are an aggressive force. We are those that bomb and blah, 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 blah. So as a result, that was it. Close the game. So when I finished, Thought were all arrested.
Yeah.
It shows like the final picture. In fact, it's Julie who's the final member to be rounded up.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you get like the newspaper clipping of her being arrested. And then it's Orwell operative under investigation and under arrest. So the one thing that I quite like is it's all based in a country called the Nation. And
it's clearly the United States.
It's clearly the US.
Like it's like
Bonton.
It's Boston.
Bonton University, yeah. But you don't live. You're not part of the Nation.
You're not a resident of.
You're not a resident. You're outsider. So at the end of it, it's like, oh, the Orwell agent. They want to get extradited to, face his charges, sort of thing.
Mm.
So yeah, all of Thought in my ending, all of Thought got arrested, and now I'm under suspicion of, dealing
crimes against the state. Yeah.
No, it puts you down as like the newspaper, obviously, puts you down. Oh, you bastard! The newspaper puts you down as like an informant of Thought. Like you become like you're the mole.
Oh, I see. Okay, you helped them do this.
Yeah, because
even though you're the one who nailed them as well. Yeah, I get
because typical political bullshit and newspaper spin.
Yeah. So really, basically, I think the only difference between mine and yours is that, like, if, like, in mine, Delacroix is taken away from power. So I think the only thing that you were missing there is that you didn't upload information. You basically continued the investigation.
I continued the investigation into Thought.
Yeah.
Which seems their arrest, but because I dabbled into Delacroix.
Yeah, she got you screwed as well, yeah.
Just her political hard-on just came along and fucked me.
Yeah, you got shafted by the Delacroix schlong, shall we say?
Yeah.
I stole that goal from you there, Matt. I'm sorry. So yeah, it seems like we both got like the bad ending and the good ending there. Because like it seems like really the only person that wins there is Delacroix in your one, which isn't.
I think that's the one thing though. I think with the basis of the game, like there's no good end. Like I don't think there actually is a true good ending.
Yeah, I get
at the end of it all, the whole game is based on is prying into people's privacy, like a good thing. Is it the correct thing to do?
Yeah,
that's basically like if I was to write an essay on the game Orwell, that would pretty much be like the opening line.
Yeah.
Because that's I think it's the message that the game's trying to put out there.
Yeah, that's ultimately what if there's a lesson to be learned from it, that's what they're trying to teach you. And that's fair enough. I just think it gets muddy at the end. Like I said, I think it's a game of interpretation of facts. And that's a big theme of it there. Just really happy with this game. I'm really, like I said, some narrative games just get it so wrong in certain points. I just feel like this game made so many decisions that they got right. I'm just so glad that I found it.
I'm glad you found it.
Yeah, because I got offered it to you. Yeah, and then.
The trouble is, I still stand by with what I said earlier, like after I finished it, because as soon as I finished it, I was like, Tony, get online. We must discuss this.
Yeah.
But like 5 minutes, like literally 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so deflated and empty. And like, I have nothing.
It sticks with you, man. Like, it really does. And the best games do. The best games make it so it stays with you after you're finished. And, and you make some, some games maybe not like in terms of a thought-provoking way like that, but like Red Dead Redemption has a way of doing that at the end, where it just sticks with you. The ending is like, oh my God, what the fuck just happened? And that's more of a visceral sort of a character getting really badly done. But it's, I think the best games, they make you think afterwards and they think about, oh shit, did that really happen? And what could I have done differently? And, along these lines, it's just, I think we've talked this game to death, and I could talk about it more because I really do love this game. It's been one of my most favorite games this year, and it's the best statement of like a game being like 4 hours or so and really making a lasting impact. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap up this review?
No, I've got nothing left to cover.
This felt really good doing a game review like this. This is what we're talking about, guys. When we kind of got like burnt out of the wrestling reviews, we felt like we were talking about the same thing all over and over. We wanted to talk about other stuff. I killed that team there, Matt, in that game. I scored 8 goals. So clearly we can multitask. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. If you did like this, then please leave a like. If you think there's any way we could maybe improve our critique of video games and stuff like this, then by all means, let us know. And we'll be happy to try and improve in any way that we can. But if you've played it and you have any thoughts, we'd love for you guys to leave a comment, and we'll definitely chat to you guys in the comments about what you think about the game. This is the sort of game that really does offer some avenues for conversation. This is one of those games that you could have a really good conversation about. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot for listening. Hope you have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.
Catch you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.